Good evening. We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order at this time. Our clerk will read the roll.
Bolden.
Aye.
Boyes.
Aye.
Connor. Davis.
Aye.
DeShazier.
Aye.
Fusco. Garrett.
Present.
Hannah.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
And Somerville.
Aye.
All members are present.
For those who voluntarily wish to do so, would you please stand at this time as we are led in prayer by Pastor James Thomas Talbert of Citizens of Akron. Immediately following our prayer, I'm going to ask if Councilwoman Boyes would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely. God, we thank you for today. We thank you for the ability to be here. And we thank you for an incredible city that we live in. God, we know that you don't name things for no reason. And as you named the city of Akron, you named it as a high point. And God, I pray that as a city, we can be a high point for integrity, a high point for peace, a high point for equity, a high point for inclusion. So God, to these ends, we pray that this meeting today would push us as a city and push us as a people to those ends. God, I pray that the people in this room will be a voice for people who don't have it in our city. I pray that we would listen to the voices that we can hear outside. And I pray that we would listen to the voices that we can hear inside, pushing us in directions that we should go. We're thankful for the city, and we're thankful for our leaders. I pray for them. I pray that you would continue to give them wisdom and direction and discernment. And I pray that they would use that wisdom, direction, and discernment for the life of the people in our city so that we can thrive as a city together. We pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The motion to approve the minutes passes 13-0.
We'll now move to our public comment period. All those who have signed up to participate, if you'll please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Just going to ask when you hear your name to please approach the podium, and you will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. And we're going to begin with Mr. Harrington Hargrove.
I'd rather not be first, but Harrington Hargrove, 1008 Laurel Avenue, Akron, 44307, Ward 3. And I'm here tonight in reference to my community, Ward 3, and economic development and the lack of. For 1980, I've been asking for my community. That was when Vernon Sykes ran for office. 1980. And this council has not addressed the needs of my community. We've been redlined and discriminated against. When I come to this podium, I say that all the time. But this council won't even formulate a plan to include us. 45 years, the redlining of Ward 3, 45. And this council seems like it doesn't matter. We need inclusion down there in that neighborhood. The inner belt took everything we had from us. And you're talking about putting money in the inner belt, but you're not talking about doing anything for the people that live around the inner belt. That's been excluded. It's a disgrace. I don't like using that, but it is. Council, you need to stand up and speak for us, not turn your back on us. 45 years. And they're putting $800 million along that corridor, if not more. I would say about, with the Ed Davis, that was 15 million. With Summit Lake, that was another 5 million. That was just recently. But if you come through our community, it's no opportunity. We've been redlined. I used to redline, but it's also racism. I know a lot of you don't want to hear racism. That's a taboo, but in Ward 3, we need the assistance of this city. You have a new budget. How much is going to be for building up our community? You had a budget last year, the year before that, and we've still been excluded. So I'm just asking council, stand up and do something for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrove. Brian Lucy.
Good evening, Madam President, council members. My name is Brian Lucy, President of Akron FOP 7. Tonight, you're going to be asked to approve nearly $700,000 for a study on whether police officers should be allowed to use force, like punches or strikes with a closed fist. Let's be clear. Policies across the state of Ohio and the entire country already confirm that these tactics are necessary for officer and public safety. This is not about improving policing. It's about wasting taxpayer money on a study to tell us something that we already know. And it's not just and that's just the beginning. Look at the city of Cleveland. They've spent nearly $60 million over 10 years, and is the city of Cleveland any safer? Now Mayor Malik and his administration are pushing that very thing in Akron, not to enhance safety, but to appease a vocal minority that criticizes police whenever possible, but never says a word when criminals commit violent crimes in our city. Some of you have said we just need to do something, but before spending nearly $1 million on a political talking point, ask yourself, what are the worst problems in Akron? When activists were here 2 weeks ago complaining about police officers, specifically using their phone while driving, those officers were responding to a 5-month-old baby beaten to death in their house. Where was the outrage for that child? Where's the community's response when criminals fire guns in our neighborhoods? Why the silence when innocent people are put at risk, but instant uproar when police take action? I recently attended a community event where a young man spoke about his fair and respectful treatment by Akron police officers, even when being arrested. His courage to speak the truth won't make the news because it doesn't fit a false narrative that police are the problem. The reality is, some of these problems start at home, and we have a culture of non-compliance that fuels them. So ask yourself, will $700,000 make the city of Akron safer? That money could be used to hire more officers, firefighters, paramedics. It could even replace aging equipment or reinstate the ladder truck that this administration recklessly removed from Station 9 to Station 12. We are not perfect as police officers, and we know that. We are humans like everyone else, but we are asked to be more personable, while being treated like robots. Smile when protesters spit on you. Don't use force when someone resists arrest. Police officers welcome real improvements if they make sense and are actually improvements. But the public safety must come first. So tonight, before you vote, ask yourself, is this truly going to make Akron safer? Spending nearly $1 million on redundant studies or providing real resources for safety in our community? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucy. Dr. Richard Montgomery.
Good evening, Madam Council President, members of council, family and friends from the Akron community. I come before you tonight as someone who believes in democracy, not just in words, but in action. A government that listens to its people, not silence them. But just over a year ago, this council passed a policy that does just that, limiting public comment to 10 voices and banning them for 30 days once they have spoken. You've not only restricted speech, you've stripped the people of Akron of their right to be heard. So, Madam Council President, Mr. Fusco, who gave you the right to take away ours? The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and Article 1, Section 11 of the Ohio Constitution guarantee us the right to speak, to petition, and to demand answers from those in power. But instead of listening, you shut the door. The families of Jalen Walker, Jasmine Tucker, you can hear the cries from outside. They can't come in unless it's 30 days later. People like Michael Jones, those families have been calling for justice. The victims like De'Ara Fields, a student from Firestone High School, and the 15-year-old boy who got shot in the hand by an Akron police officer, Mr. Lucy. They've been calling for accountability. Black citizens require a venue to voice their disdain for the treatment of black men, black women, and children whose rights and lives are being violated by this city. Instead of making space for those voices, you've passed an ordinance to silence them. And I've heard for some of you, the meetings run too long. Listening to the people is a bit inconvenient. But let me remind you, every one of you spent hours knocking on doors, getting petitions signed, and asking for the votes to sit in those chairs. If you had time to campaign, you got time to listen. If you don't want to hear the people, you're in the wrong seat. But I tell you today, the people will not be silenced. So here's what we're going to do. And I'm saying this with the utmost respect for this council. I'm giving you 7 days to repeal this unconstitutional, undemocratic, and unjust ordinance. If you fail to do so, I will take this council to court, because justice apparently in Akron is only won through struggle. I will also be handing each of you a copy of the legislation that will repeal this unjust policy. A copy was sent to this body January 22nd and again on February 12th, giving this council plenty of time to review the proposed legislation. Per council rules, any legislation to be discussed must have been received by the clerk's office by 4 p.m. the prior Wednesday. This legislation was submitted Wednesday 2 weeks ago, before this meeting. We can avoid going to court tonight by invoking Council Rule 6.15. Council President, you can invoke Rule 6.15 of the council's rules that allow the original sponsor or sponsors of an ordinance to submit a substitution without a uniform report or multiple readings. I'm asking you to invoke Rule 6.15 tonight, Councilwoman. The people
Dr.
are tuned in
Montgomery,
at
I'm so
home,
sorry, but your time is up.
and the only question is now, do you have the courage to do so?
Thank you so much, Dr. Montgomery. Mary King. Is Mary King here with us? She's not. Okay. Richard King. Amanda. Is Amanda here?
If one were forced, for the sake of clarity, to define fascism in one word, that one word would be reform. That's what George Jackson wrote in Blood in My Eye in the 70s. Y'all know they're getting rid of DEI now, so we can't even learn about people like George Jackson anymore. Controlling ideas is fascism. Another thing just happened last week. The Federal Department of Justice erased the law enforcement misconduct database, totally erased it. Can no longer know about police misconduct. The police who are killing us. That's fascism too. Police have been killing black people since the police were invented as the slave patrols who were used as armed agents of the state to capture enslaved people to protect the moneyed interests of slave owners, the ruling class. The police patrol and kill black people to that end, and they do it without consequence. In fact, it's enshrined into our law by the Supreme Court through cases like Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, the public duty doctrine, a bunch of cases which basically say that the police have no duty to protect and serve the people. They can kill you and do it without consequence. That's fascism. Jayland, Jasmine, Marcus L. Smith, just the other day, all murdered by Akron police without consequence. To think you're going to reform that is synonymous with fascism. These are not occasional bad apple cops. These are armed agents of the state doing exactly what this country was founded on, controlling and killing black and poor people to serve rich people. Jayland, Jasmine, Marcus Smith shot dead in poor neighborhoods. It's no mistake. I've never seen a white person murdered in cold blood by the police in front of their mansion on Merriman Road. I grew up here, working class. Probably so did y'all. I wanted to change the world for good. I studied hard, did all the right things. In fact, I got my doctorate by the time I was 28. You know who else was studying for their doctorate? Marcus Smith. He's dead. You know, while you sit up there thinking you'll reform it or change it from within, I came to a very different conclusion. I agree with George Jackson. Y'all can pursue your careers and status, which puts you in those seats today, but I would never sit in those seats. I want to sit on this side of the podium with the people. On that side are the people who, no matter how well-intentioned you once were, work to uphold the fascism that kills the people that sit on this side of the podium. So I don't care what the intention ever was. The reality lies in what class and interest you serve. I know whose interests you serve because of where you're sitting. So I'll ask you to do something really simple, and this won't cost you your jobs or money or status. You know how at the end of every public comment, you say something real empty and phony, like, thank you for sharing today, or whatever. I don't believe you share our interests. I think it's fake, I think it's phony, I think it's dishonest and disrespectful. So I'd ask you to just be honest about who you are. Say nothing if you can't say justice for Jasmine.
Thank you, Amanda. Reverend Dr. Penfield.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joyce Penfield. I'm also the founder of Peace Builders Academy and an active participant of the Criminal Justice Committee of the NAACP. I attend and help to work very hard to get issue 10 passed. And I am speaking today about the ordinance for a review of use of force in our city. We're at a crossroads now. I've just been hearing very different perspectives. I have walked and lived each of those perspectives a tiny bit. My husband was Nigerian. I have 3 children. One of them was beaten up by the police in New Jersey when he was 12 and charged with nothing except having a black skin. My passion is to see that we move forward. We move forward and do something in order to address professional standards in all professions, but especially in the one that is the most difficult, the one that has the most stress to it. And I would love to support the ordinance. I spoke against it at one time because of the cost. But we have to do something. Mayor Malik has made a step forward. Why can't we negotiate? Why can't we find another one? A competing, take two different companies or two different. In my field, you created a scope of service and you said exactly what you were going to do and how you were going to do it, what the outcomes would be, and you measured them, and you were accountable to that. I have not heard that. None of us have heard that with this particular plan. Maybe the council have that in private, but we need some step forward. We cannot keep kicking this can down the road. All the money that's been spent after someone's been killed, after someone has lost their life. If you think in money, think in money. I think in people. I can't bear to see another African-American male mowed down by a gun and a bullet, and that includes police. That includes police. I understand it's a difficult profession, but we need as a body to move forward. We have very different perspectives because we have very different lives. Community safety, public safety, for African Americans, that means staying alive amidst the presence of police sometimes, honestly. That's what it means. For white people, it means not getting robbed, perhaps. I don't know. But we don't have the same safety definitions because life is not treating us in the same way. It's unequal. I'm sure we don't want that. So let's move forward. And if you cannot vote for the ordinance, as a public safety may tell us soon, the committee, then vote for doing something. Don't leave it dead in the water. Find another client. Lower the price. Do something with scope of service so we know what we're getting and we can go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Penfield. Is Vicki Armstrong here? No? Okay. She is here? Oh, thank you.
Sorry, I did not have time to go to the library to print my speech off today. So good evening, Vicki Armstrong, Ward 1. I'm here to ask that you, on two ordinances that have been sitting in the public safety time thing, and I guess the one is coming up for a vote tonight. Both are unnecessary and incredibly costly proposed contracts that are unbid. First is the contract for the purchase of a mobile command vehicle for the safety forces at a cost of $325,000. In December of 2021, Council authorized the purchase of a community response vehicle for over $292,000. This was supposed to be needed to move people in and out of dangerous situations. I've not been able to find out when or where it has been used, except when it was parked outside the mayor's house to intimidate peaceful protesters, or at a few stops at city parks during festivals. I propose that the city repurpose that vehicle for its mobile command center, as it has thick walls and should be safe even from disaffected citizens. It would cost a lot less than $325,000 to do that, I think. Second is the proposal to spend up to $758,000 to a law group with 5 locations in the United States and 5 locations worldwide. Really? Do we need this in the city of Akron? It just blows my mind. I submit to the council that if each of you went out in your neighborhood, in the city, and talked to the people outside a cafe, a small business, or a grocery store, you would be able to get a good reading on the amount and kind of community engagement needed by APD. In Ohio, the only capital crime is a murder, and that is just a murder, not just a single murder, but a murder that has certain circumstances, including the murder of a law enforcement officer, a child, or a witness. A black man running away from the police because of a broken taillight and a warrant, a black man suspected of stealing a truck, a young black boy running scared across the football field. Those are not capital crimes that someone should be killed for. We here in Akron well know about APD's use of force. There are already police and procedures in place that can be followed. So as federal funds for projects may be withdrawn, please do not authorize either one of these expensive and unneeded proposals. We need the money that we have now to run these cities. Kill these proposals tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Armstrong. Bishop Mark Neal. So, Bishop, we had a few people who did not show up, so that is why, okay? I'm calling you forward.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry if it seemed like I was a little startled. I was. Very quickly, to everyone present, I have heard what has been said thus far. I want to speak regarding the proposed use of force policy and practice review. I've been in ministry now for 41 years, pastoring for 35 years. I've led many projects as a project manager, including new construction and remodeling. There's always pros and cons. Not everyone will be in agreement when voting is concerned, especially when you're utilizing someone else's money. With any project, there will be the need for discussion, difficult decisions to be made, like regarding the proposed use of force policy and practice review. Initially, when I heard the dollar amount proposed, I was appalled and not in favor of any review to that which was obvious. Oftentimes, there is a need to obtain multiple RFPs or RFPs, but there are also times when leadership should be trusted and held accountable. One thing I know is every project that the city of Akron has engaged in did not follow the policy for RFP, but a declaration for an emergency to suspend the rules was taken. With the city of Akron in 2024 operating budget being proposed or was at $815 million and the local APD budget at $88 million. Therefore, $640,000 with contingencies of $758,000 to save our city from potential additional lawsuit payouts is worth the investment. I don't know Paul Wise or the CP21 Solutions or even Loretta Lynch, but I can say this, that according to the book of Matthew, chapter number 6, verse 21, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Therefore, I'm in favor, and I speak this for myself as well as others that I am connected with, that we're in favor of spending this money because it's needed and necessary. I understand that there are some other issues and concerns, but if we don't start at this particular point in this particular time, when will we? We want to make some adjustments and some contingencies and moving forward, but to spend the money, in our opinion, is needed and necessary, including with the Police Oversight Board of Anthony Fennell. If you're not in favor of it, that's your personal opinion, but what do we have to hide? So let us take the needed steps. I'm asking all the council people that I know and some that I don't know, make a difference, make a change, so we can save our city from some undue duress as well as additional lawsuits. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bishop Neal. I do believe we have two individuals who are online with us.
Yes.
Miss Sutton, can you hear me? Is Miss Sutton?
Yes.
On? No, Miss Sutton.
I'm here. Give me a second. I'm here.
Okay, we can hear you, so you can begin, okay?
Okay. Let me get started. I'm not started. I'm gonna need all of them.
Would you want us to run the time back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yes.
she's gonna run the time back for you, a few more minutes, okay? All right, let's go.
Mr. Hargrove, FOP guy, Camel guy, somehow we all agree. DEI doesn't serve black people. I'm black. You've gotten $500 million in 4 years, and you haven't benefited us. You have all of us looking crazy. Now to what I actually wrote. I have an announcement. The city of Akron has been listed as an official co-sponsor to this year's Akron Juneteenth. I'm sure you all have questions. A brief story of the Juneteenth that none of these local black papers will print. Every year for 27 years, whether the city was on the flyer or not, Gerald Carter or myself was required to pay for insurance and list the city as co-insurees. That protects them against damages that may occur at the park. This is normal. But what I didn't know is that it also holds both of us equally responsible for avoiding damages. As a result of the trauma I endured last year, trying to protect this event alone, I am now receiving my law degree and I can see where all of this makes sense. I can't find an organization or a lawyer to assist me. I did it myself. Basically, you have all always been responsible for assisting me in protecting this event that is good for all of us. That's probably why you provide officers every year. You've provided a few officers in a booth every year for 27 years. You are thanked, and we like that you do that every year. It's written down in our pamphlet. I provide armed security and family lookouts to aid you so that you guys don't have to bring 10 or 15 police. It works. It's fine. That's the end of the story. So this year, when I got the event payers explicitly saying that I need to pay $1,500 for police, I feel I needed to come and tell you, I will not be paying $1,500 for police. The city failed their promise last year because they should have just made that same deal with all of us, and you didn't. You messed up. There have been over $20 million federally funded into this city explicitly for community development and policing in high-risk neighborhoods. This event shouldn't have had to have volunteer police. Shamus sat with me for 6 months and said he'd make sure they'd be there. I hold you accountable for this event because Black, white, Democrat, Republican, churches, officers, organizations, and several of your city offices every year come together and we talk about these problems and we donate time to these Black children that you keep talking so bad about. As elected officials, nonprofit Black improvement organizations, minority business owners, police, council people, we are supposed to be better than that. Not a single one of us deserves our position if we hold our personal feelings and funding over the sworn duty we all have to help. My question is, for once, can we all admit the fault that we are all sharing in regards to this festival by not properly protecting it? And which one of y'all got $1,500 for me? Thank y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sutton. Janos?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you can begin.
All right, 16 days ago, on February 8th, Akron PSL and the family of Jasmine Tucker held an event at Joy Park to commemorate the life of Jazz. They, like the 60-plus attendees, chose to sidestep the attempted cancellation of the event by the police and the mayor. The city of Akron believed that the slogan "End the War on Black America" made the event unsafe and attempted to force the family to pay for APD security. A callous act while justice is ill delayed for Jasmine Tucker. A callous act while his dream is still deferred. But then they attempted to cancel the event, but as you can tell, we didn't give a damn what y'all said. We heard how he shoveled driveways and mowed lawns for his great aunt and great grandma. We heard that at 6 years old, he said he wanted to be a police officer. But you know, the danger that the city and the mayor feared were absent for the event. I wonder if it got better without cops or if it got better because my lightsabers work better outside. With those thoughts, I'll leave you with a 3-step program on improving this city and the words of our state rep, Veronica Sims. The program, step 1, deny the APD legitimacy. Step 2, defend the sanctity of Black life in Akron. 3, depose Mayor Malik and this psycho city council. Here are the words of Veronica Sims. The findings from the Summit County Medical Examiner are deeply disturbing. Jasmine Tucker, with his back turned, was shot multiple times, resulting in his tragic death. This heartbreaking incident raises serious questions about the continued use of deadly force and the circumstances surrounding it. And while painful to watch, the body cam and dashboard footage of the incident has been extremely valuable to understand the chain of events following the Thanksgiving night shooting. It highlights why the public should have fair and unchallenging access to these types of public records for the sake of transparency and accountability. As the family and community anxiously await the disposition of the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation and the subsequent expedited response for justice, the echoing call for substantive reforms can and must not wait. While no action can bring back Jasmine, we must ensure that this tragedy leads to transformative change. We cannot afford to allow more families and communities like Jasmine's to suffer through the indescribable trauma these incidents inflict. And on another note, I don't know if anyone from Marcus Leonard Smith's family or his classes at the University of Cincinnati are listening tonight, but I want you to know that your son, your teacher, was many beautiful things. You deserve to live, not die in Summit Lake to the dumb fucks of guns that we are forced to call the Akron Police Department. Margot Somerville, I hope you've got a statement, because he got killed in your goddamn ward. I owed my time.
Thank you, Janos. William Reynolds.
Hello, council members. I'm William Reynolds, a leader with the Freedom Bloc. I do pretty much everything I do because I am a devout Christian. I may not be perfect at following all of the rules or laws, but one rule I diligently attempt to follow in all that I do is to love my fellow man. In a recent sermon, I heard something that we all can take guidance from no matter our religious beliefs. There will be times when God calls us to love, and it won't be convenient or comfortable, or when we feel like it won't be deserved or sometimes not even reciprocated. You won't even get a simple thank you. Nevertheless, we're called to love the way Jesus loves us because he is the standard. Sometimes loving others will even cost us something. Let us not forget that God's love for us is, was, and will forever be unconditional. Love your brothers and sisters. They may not look like you, smell like you, worship the way you do, or vote the way you do. In honor of Black History Month, I want to share some Akron history. This history is from this millennium, this century, this decade, the last 25 years. Eric Tyrone Clements, Clifford Morris, Raymond E. Haynes III, Thomas John Tremco Jr., Ronald A. Jackson, Gary D. Burnett, Willie Robinson, Robert J. McMillan Jr., Dennis S. Hyde, Bernard W. Sagewood, Richard T. Holcomb, Demetrius R. Vinson, Robert Kirk, Jeffrey Stephens Sr., Calvin A. McMahon Jr., Calvin Pentendros, Taiwan Anthony Barham Sr., Dwayne LeVar Grant Sr., James Glenda, Raphael Thomas, Jordan Miller, Omar Ali, William Lemons, Ryan W. Perkins, Philip Hassan, Edward Earl Tyler, John V. Bowen III, Xavier McMullen, William Perbusky, Ryan Angerstein, Robert J. Talbot, James W. Gross, Lawrence Rogers, Raymond Jones, Arlo Mosley, Zion Grisby, Raymond Wanzo, Jalen Walker, Lawrence Rogers, Mike Jones, Jasmine Tucker, Forever 15, Marcus Leonard Smith. Hear their names, say their names, remember their names. This list is a list of 50 Black men whose death was credited to Akron Police Department action, inaction, or plain old negligence over the last 25 years. I am not claiming that all were innocent of crimes or even dangerous, but Akron Police Department seems to not believe in less lethal ways to get compliance. Just look at Jasmine Tucker's case. A trained military marksman grabbed for his assault rifle when he didn't have to. The situation did not dictate the necessity to use such a weapon. There was no
Mr. Reynolds, I'm so sorry, but your time is up.
Let me finish this sentence. There was no real or perceived threat for a weapon that should only be used by SWAT or in a dangerous situation.
Mr. Reynolds, I'm sorry.
I really hope this city changes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you everyone for coming down and participating. That concludes our public comment period. Council, before you is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. DeShazier, I have a note here that you were going to abstain from the consent agenda. Are you abstaining? Thank you very much. The consent agenda passes 12-0 with 1 abstention.
Thank you. We'll now move to old business, planning and economic development. Councilman Fusco.
Thank you. I'd like to pull the committee on item number 1 for an adverse report. Kamer, Connor, Boyce,
Aye.
Hannah.
Aye.
Thank you. Yes, after reviewing this proposal, a couple of us have been out there at this proposed site. We're taking a residential area, converting it into a commercial parking area, and based on the review and recommendation also of the Ward Council Representative Jan Davis, we're recommending disapproval. I don't know if you have any comments.
Councilwoman Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. I've had the opportunity to meet with the residents on Parkgate, as well as the architect and the attorney involved. And the issue at hand is that they wanted to expand out their parking. The residents, I believe I got something from Sarah today that there was an attachment where 9 residents had signed against it. And I agree with them. I took the opportunity to ride over to the area 4 times between 11 and 11:30 a.m. in the morning. And each time I visited, there were 13 to 18 parking spaces available. So with that, you know, I don't see the justification for demolishing a neighborhood home to extend parking. So with that, I'll be voting no on that, and I would encourage that my colleagues do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So the committee's report is adverse. So all in favor of the adverse report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
And we have 1.
The motion for an adverse report passes 12-1.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Fusco.
Thank you. Time on 2 and 3. File 4, that's the petition that we just voted on. 5, time on 5. And item number 6, the report of the committee is favorable. We're asking for passage.
Okay.
This reference the ground lease that it's been on our agenda for a little bit, that it has been delinquent since January 1st of 2023 through February of 25. This is forgiving that. What had happened was the owner came upon some tough times. The land bank as well as the Development Finance Authority came in and made some improvements. And as a result of a lot of that work that was done, we are recommending that we go ahead and forgive this piece of it. And I understand that there may be a new owner someday, and that whenever that does come forward, that we're hoping that that's going to be able to be renegotiated, and then we will be, that new owner, whoever that may be, will be able to negotiate a lease with us. The lease area is primarily the Cascade Plaza. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 13-0.
Councilman Fusco.
Time on the balance.
Time will be granted. Public Safety, Councilman McKittrick.
Time on number 1.
Time will be granted.
On number 2, the committee's report is adverse.
Okay. Mayor, did you want to speak? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, members of council. Good evening, Madam President. So we had a lengthy discussion this afternoon. I won't repeat myself too much. But what I would say is that tonight here we have heard a lot of comments about policing and about use of force. In this room over the last several years, we have heard a lot of discussion and comments about policing, a lot of comments and discussion about use of force in the streets just now. You can hear that. And in the streets in the last few years, we have heard a lot of comments about policing, a lot of comments about use of force. In the department, across the street, and as Sergeant Lucy notes, there are a lot of perspectives about policing and about use of force, about what's appropriate and what's not. Issue 10 passed, the police auditor was hired, deputy police auditor was hired, and over the course of the past year, the recurring recommendation from him and his office and the board has been to review and revise our use of force policies and practices. It's something that I committed to when I started in this role. And unless we do that, we are going to be right back in the same conversations. We can talk about timing and we can talk about cost. We'll be in the same conversations. We have to have as a community the discussion. The folks who believe like Janos believes and the folks who believe like Sergeant Lucy believes and everybody in between, because I do believe most people are in between. And a lot of research went into this entity and this being an appropriate entity. This is the most qualified, competent, experienced entity we can find.
I'm sorry, if you could maintain order, I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry, Mayor.
It's okay. Ultimately, if this is worth prioritizing, it's worth making it a priority. If this is worth doing, it's worth doing right. We can find reasons not to do it. We can say that it should be a lower cost. We can say that it's not the right time. There are some folks who do not think we should do it at all. But I believe this is the right thing to do. I believe this is the right time to do it. I believe that our city needs to go through this process and that this entity is the best position to help us have these difficult conversations. If there was an easier way of doing it, if there was a cheaper way of doing it, we would have already done it. These are not new conversations, but we have never done a review of use of force, listening to our officers, listening to the community, and then coming up with best practices, and then training on them and implementing them. We can do that. We should do that. I urge you to pass this.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any comments from council? Councilwoman Davis?
Thank you, Madam President. This has really been a difficult decision for me. I appreciated the conversation this afternoon. It was robust, healthy, and I respect my colleagues and their positions on it. While I don't agree with quite a few of them, I'm standing in support of this legislation because we have got to do something. We can't continue to kick this ball down the road. You have stakeholders that will be there that have never been at the table before, and I think we're making a mistake if we don't pass this. But whatever you decide as a body, I will respect that. But personally, I think we're making a mistake if we don't move forward with this. So again, I do support it, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Are there any other comments from any other council members? I'm sorry. Councilman Hanna, and then we'll go with Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it hasn't been hard for me to make my decision. Everyone in the horseshoe agree that we need to do something. I agree that we need to do something, but a cost of over $600,000, no. Now, we did ask the mayor to give us several other options to choose from. He did, but he didn't have a price on those other options. He did say why he didn't have a price on those options, but we need to know how much other organizations or firms would charge the city for doing the same work. That wasn't given to us. He just gave us CP 21, and that was it. We know what they'll do. We know how much money we'll have to spend. But for me, it's like this. We're not asking you for anything that you wouldn't do if you were sitting in this chair. An example, right now, eggs are high. If you could find a dozen eggs for $2, and on the other side of the city, it were 12, which would you take? And get the same results. You're gonna scramble them, or you're gonna make them hard boiled, or whatever. That's all we're asking. Give us the opportunity to pick and choose another firm that will give us the same results for less money. And I'm gonna close saying, policies don't change people. People change policies.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Madam President. I am in total support of this proposal, and I have been from day one. And I believe as a city, we have to do this. We have lost too many individuals to questionable practices. This will give us an opportunity to review everything about the use of force, to go out into the community and talk with our neighbors, to provide training to our officers where we would have better practices used when they encounter our citizens. Unfortunately, we have had too many Black individuals, killed by the police. We have to do something to review our practices. This is just too important not to do it. So I am in full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other comments here around the horseshoe? If not, I will share a couple. I will yield to Councilwoman Boyce.
Thank you, Madam President. Like Councilwoman Davis, this was something that, I mean, she didn't state this, but something I lose sleep over. I care about my constituents in my neighborhood. I answer their calls. You know, I call the service department when I need to. However, this is the thing that keeps me up at night. Some of the comments that occurred in this room this evening have even more greatly solidified my support for this, for two reasons. Yes, it's expensive. So are the settlements that we've been making. And there will be others. And there will be others. I believe that support of this and a review that allows the city to be the strongest, put the strongest foot forward legally is important right now. That's what my constituents are telling me. However, some of the remarks I heard have even more strengthened my support for this. We are over here and we are over here. This is bigger than just a use of force review. This community, we're not on the same page when it comes to policing. There are police officers that don't know what the community wants from them. There are people in neighborhoods who say, the police don't understand me. This is our problem. People will continue to be, I'm not saying the police are right or wrong in these situations, but there will continue to be guns on the street of Akron because there are more guns on the street of Akron than there have ever been. Their job is more and more dangerous every day. But at the same time, we need to know how to live and police in a community where that is the case. I don't love it, I hate it. But it is our reality. And I believe strongly that unless we take this issue head on and include the police, especially the patrol officers, and include the residents that are most greatly impacted, that we will not get anywhere. I am not for speed always. In fact, if you ask my husband who's out here, I am probably the cheapest. I will shop for eggs across town, Councilman Hanna. But this is not an instance where I'm willing to price negotiate. If we're going to do this, I want the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Madam President. As it relates to this particular resolution or this particular piece of legislation, I struggled with it at times. I think of the young kids on the football field who could use that money. I struggled with the elderly folks who could use that money. But after talking to one of my constituents that really hammered home, we could spend $750,000 for something else. But when it comes to supporting or doing something to stop the senseless killing of these young black men in our streets, we have to start somewhere. And that is why I've come full circle to support this. And I would encourage my colleagues to do the same exact thing. At the end of the day, we have to start. I mean, you have to start somewhere. And the price, since 2021, we spent nearly $6 million in lawsuits. So that's not even counting the other lawsuits that we may have. We have to stop the bleeding. And I just would encourage my colleagues to really sit back and think about this. At some point in time, it's going to come to your front door. We need to make sure that these officers get the training, the help, the support. I was with the Special Forces unit in the military. I support law enforcement. And so with that, I mean, I support the police. But we should be able, Madam President, to offer some suggestions, some ways to make them better. And that's what I'm all about, ways to make them better. And I think the first step that the mayor is trying to take with this particular legislation will do just that. It will help make them better. And I didn't just sit back and think of it on my own. I solicited the information from Noble. I solicited the information from Mr. Furnell. I looked at all of the proposals. And just by their recommendation, this is the best. This is the best. And we as Akron deserve nothing less than the best. So I support it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Fusco?
Just briefly, I think, at least based on this afternoon's discussion and other discussions throughout these last few months, that everyone in this room is willing to go through to find ways to improve policing, to find ways that we can reduce the amount of guns, for Pete's sakes, but the use of force, and to study that, and then to make adjustments that are appropriate. I just believe that many of us are looking at what is the best way, the best method in the time that we're in this moment right now. I'm pretty sure that we all understand this part of it, and that is that we have policy, and that's what we can control, pretty much policy, but at the end of the day, it's the federal government, and it's those laws that are determined often by the courts in terms of what the proper amount of use of force is, okay? But if there's something we can do in terms of policy that we would reduce this, I'm not going to answer for everybody. I learned a long time ago not to do that, but I know that we're all going to be in support of that, and we all want to see that at the end of the day. It's just we have to find a way, a place to agree in terms of how to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Earlier during committee, I did share that I was an original sponsor on this legislation because I do feel and still feel that it is important for us to review our use of force. That is something that we need to do. Anthony Fennell, our oversight auditor, made that very clear, and I am committed to doing that. It wasn't until I began to talk with my constituents and people in the community began to really challenge me as to why does it have to cost $642,000 to do this work? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And I began to do my own research and had an opportunity to have a conversation with someone who has done use of force reviews all across the country, high-profile cases, who basically told me that we were being overcharged, that it shouldn't cost $642,000 to do a review of our use of force. I think majority of council members agree that this is the next step. We got to move forward. But I think the way that this process started and how it rolled out is kind of the problem. You know, we talk about community engagement, but we put community engagement last. We got to put community engagement first and engage the community and have the community kind of help us figure out how we move forward in terms of this use of force. Again, so many people have said, oh, we got so many reports. We've done so many reports and nothing's been implemented. The reality of it is it costs money to implement recommendations. And so for me, it's very important, you know, whatever the recommendations that we get back, that we have money allocated, designated to implement those recommendations. I've been asking for 6 weeks, just can we see 2 other proposals so that we can do a comparison to compare apples to apples, to make sure that Akron really is getting the best, making sure that we are being fiscally responsible with taxpayers' dollars. And we haven't been able to get that information, you know, which leads me to feel as if, you know, there's information that doesn't want to be shared, or there, you know, maybe it really doesn't cost $642,000. And really just ask for that information just in a spirit of transparency so this body could make the best decision. I am committed. Council leadership is committed, whatever and however this vote goes on tonight, that hopefully we can work with you, Mayor, we can work with Brian Lucy, we can work with our chief, we can work with the community to really figure out how we move forward, because we must move forward. And I think we agree on majority. It's just the fact that just not believing that it needs to cost $642,000 to do the work. I think there's a lot of options. We're fortunate. We got a lot of strong community partners. We got the University of Akron. There's a lot of ways and other ways in which we can do this work, but also make sure that the community is involved in the process so they get a buy-in to the process and they want to really help us in this work. And so at this time, I don't know if there's any other comments, but we do have a motion on the floor. Councilman Lombardo, do you have a comment?
Thank you. So I look at it this way, you know, we have, and I don't know the correct order of things here, but when we have a situation in Akron, we have the BCI come in and to investigate it. It goes on to the grand jury, the Department of Justice, the internal office of the Akron Police Department. We got the police auditor involved, and that wasn't good enough some years ago. So now we have to have the Citizens Review Board come in and do some oversight. And again, this isn't good enough. We need this lawyer firm to come in. I don't know where it ends, because there's always going to be a situation where, the officer stepped left instead of stepped right. I don't know. I just believe in the training that they have of the organizations that I've mentioned. I don't know how many of them really came back and said, there's a violation. I mean, we've said this afternoon, the police go on 135,000 calls a year. And, sometimes you would think it's a simple call, if that's even the case, but it can turn in an instant. And the officers with their training, we're not wearing the blue. They are. So we don't really know what it's like. Yes, something needs to be done. It's easy for some people to say, but I just believe in what they do. I said also this afternoon, probably someone in the HR department violated policy today. I mean, but I appreciate the whole department on maybe putting the benefits package together for, the whole city. I'm not going to let one person's actions paint the whole picture of how the department or the organization, works. Maybe someone in the service department had a violation today. Maybe they drove over someone's lawn. I don't know. But I appreciate them. Today was Pick Up Trash Day in Ward 2. I appreciate everything that they do. Okay, we're not always going to be perfect, but to have the constant looking over your shoulder, I don't know who can operate like that. I don't know who can operate like that. That's why you'll have a lot of these resignations that are happening in our Akron Police Department. So we're going to get down to a very, very thin level of, it's going to be an emergency because we're always hiring, and maybe this could be the reason why. So anyhow, I do not support this. Apologize to the mayor for this. I know they put a lot of time and effort into it, but I mean, I just support our defense, right? They're our defense, and we need defense out there on the field. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We do have a motion on the floor for an adverse report. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the adverse report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So at this time, we're going to do a roll call.
Bolden,
Let me clarify. If we're,
And so if you are in support of the adverse report, you're going to say aye.
that's what I thought. Aye.
Boyce,
Nay.
Connor, Davis, DeShazier,
Aye.
Fusco, Garrett.
Aye. Support, yes.
You support the adverse report?
No, nay, I'm sorry.
Hannah,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Amobian,
Nay.
and Somerville.
Aye.
The motion for an adverse report passes 9-4. This ordinance will be filed.
That concludes our old business. We'll now move into new legislation. Councilman Fusco.
You have to fix your.
Oh, that's right.
Item number 1, offered by Fusco. Ordinance amending or supplementing Title 15, Chapter 153 Zoning Code, Article 6, Development and Area District Requirements, Section 153.305 Residence Requirements, and Section 4.3.3 Walls and Fences of the City of Akron Form-Based Code to amend fencing requirements and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Refer.
This item will be referred.
Item number 2, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish a dual-use cannabis dispensary at 235 East Waterloo Road and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Refer.
This item will be referred.
Item number 3, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing the sale of city-owned property located on Hickory Street, parcel 6764615, to Les Bafta, determining said property is not needed for public use and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 4, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of advertising for bids with the Rulin Company and Shelley and Sands Construction Company for the emergency repair to certain water mains and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer.
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 5, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids, requesting and receiving requests for proposals, or requesting and receiving quotes for facility improvements at community centers and downtown buildings to prevent and/or repair water leaks and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer.
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 6, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract after publicly advertising for bids, requesting and receiving requests for proposals, requesting and receiving quotes, and/or self-performing work for miscellaneous facility improvements at the Municipal Service Center, authorizing payment therefor and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer.
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 7, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids, requesting and receiving requests for proposals, requesting and receiving quotes, and/or self-performing work for the replacement of exterior lighting in various city-owned parks and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer.
Consent agenda.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 8, offered by McKittrick. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Summa Health to provide the education and training necessary for fire division employees to achieve the required paramedic certification and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
The committee's report's favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
We have 9 newer members of our fire department who are presently in Summa's paramedic school, and we'd like to be able to pay Summa for the training, so we're asking for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 9, offered by McKittrick. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Lexipol to update and revise the Akron Fire Department's standard operating procedures and standard operating guidelines and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
The committee's report's favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
These have not been updated for some time, some of which might be in violation of the Ohio Revised Code. So we would like for its passage tonight so they can start to work on this and bring it back into compliance.
Okay, thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 13-0.
Thank you. That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We'll now move into our committee assignments. Rules, Councilman McKittrick.
2 p.m.
Public Safety, Councilman McKittrick. Budget and Finance, Councilman Lombardo.
3 p.m.
Parks and Recreation, Councilwoman Connor. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilman Kamer. Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Councilwoman Davis?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to make a comment. I happen to know the father of the young man that was shot and killed. And reflecting back through the years when all of our kids were growing up, exceptional young man in every way. I listened to that 911 tape more than once because his father lived on Ira, and I don't know, he was attempting to get back home, but what struck me was that I believe, and I could be wrong, that I heard his dad screaming, "That's my son." So the family is a great family. They're grieving. I've heard their child's name drop twice here in this council chambers, but you have not heard the parents place blame anywhere. They've been silent. So out of respect, let's let them grieve and stop dropping their son's name. Because trust me, when it's time to speak, his father will speak. So please respect that, if you would. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman DeShazier?
Good afternoon, everyone. You know, we've gone through some troubling times here recently. Akron has always been a proving ground for this country and for this state. And so I think we should all pray that we come together for a solution, because we cannot continue to do this. We need to now come together with the mayor and with everybody else who has some way for us to have this solution. So I want to thank you for listening and for all of your comments. I think all of us have heard from our constituents, and we have a lot of work to do still. I want to switch gears on you. We had a fire, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, on Dominion. It's actually, I believe it's in Ward number 8. And I drove by that fire, and I still can smell the smoke that's in my lungs, and I can't get it out. Well, one thing that we are doing, and it's open to all citizens of this great city of Akron, is tomorrow we're going to have a home safety seminar in Ward 1 at the Red Cross. And anybody, no matter where you are in this city, if you come and you don't have a smoke detector, and if you don't have a CO detector, you can come and sign up, schedule it, and we will have it installed in your home at no charge to you. That's anywhere in the city of Akron, anywhere in Summit County for that matter. If you come to Ward 1 to the Red Cross on West Market Street, the firefighters group has come together to put this seminar together along with our partner, the Red Cross. And you can just sign your name if it's the place where you live. You can get a CO detector, or you can get a smoke detector, or both if you don't have them, and they will be installed in your home at no charge. Thank you very much. I'm praying for all of you. God bless you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Fusco?
Yeah, just that, and I'm hoping to get a little assistance here from Susie Graham Moore. We received these today. I was going to mention or have a brief discussion about these. These are referencing the Lock 3 survey. Excuse me, Susie, would you like to say a few words about this? We were going to talk about it this afternoon in committee, but we had other things as well. So if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
If you're going to speak, just come to the mic, Susie. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yes, we are looking for feedback from the public regarding programming that they would like to see in Lock 3 this summer. And so there's a survey that is open. That website is available on our website. And then there is flyers in each of the council members' mailboxes, so those can be distributed through digital means as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we all know, we've invested, along with our partners, a considerable amount of funds into that park. So let's get it right. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Anything else coming before this body? We have, Mayor?
Tomorrow, 5 to 7 p.m., there will be a community forum on the city's crowd control and public order policy, Garfield CLC. So I hope you can attend, not to compete with you, Councilman DeShazier. I hope your event is successful too. The work continues.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have a motion for adjournment. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.